Hello, my dear friends. My name is Dorothy, but everyone calls me Dot. I'm 73 years old, and I'm speaking to you today from my beautiful home in Charleston, South Carolina. A home I built with my own two hands, so to speak. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop a comment and let me know. It always warms my heart to see how far these stories travel. Now, what I'm about to tell you isn't easy to share. In fact, there are moments when I still can't quite believe it happened, but it did. Every single word of it. And I'm sharing this with you because I know some of you might be going through something similar, or maybe you're worried about someone you love. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we should watch most carefully. Let me take you back to where it all started. I've been a widow for 8 years now. My husband, Tom, was the love of my life. We built everything together, our business, our home, our family. Tom owned a successful commercial real estate company, and I worked right alongside him for 42 years. When he passed, he left everything to me, just as we'd always planned. The properties, the investments, the savings, it was all part of the life we'd built together. We had 2 children. Michael, our oldest, is 47. He's always been the ambitious one, always looking for the next big opportunity. Then there's Lauren, 43, who married a man named Brad 6 years ago. I'll be honest, I had reservations about Brad from the start, but I kept them to myself. Lauren seemed happy, and that's what mattered to me. After Tom died, I threw myself into managing our estate. I learned every detail of our investments, maintained the properties, kept everything running smoothly. I wasn't just some grieving widow sitting around waiting to fade away. I was active, sharp, and very much in control of my life. But about a year ago, things started to change. It began small. Michael started visiting more often, which I appreciated at first. He'd drop by with coffee, ask how I was doing, offer to help with things around the house. Then Lauren and Brad started coming around more too. Family dinners became a regular thing. Every Sunday, they'd all show up, and we'd have these lovely meals together. I thought I was blessed. I thought my children were finally realizing how precious our time together was. I was wrong. The questions started casually enough. Michael would ask about the properties, about the tenants, about which buildings were performing well. "Mom, are you sure old Mr. Patterson is still a reliable tenant? His rent checks have been late before, haven't they?" They hadn't been. Not once in 12 years. But Michael would plant these seeds of doubt. Lauren would inquire about my doctor's appointments, whether I was taking my medications, whether I'd thought about slowing down. She started keeping a little notebook. I saw it once when she left her purse open. Pages of notes about our conversations, dates, times, like she was building a case. Brad, who barely spoke to me for the first 5 years I knew him, suddenly had opinions about everything. "Dorothy, no offense, but Gerald Hutchins is pretty old school. Have you thought about someone more modern?" He'd brought business cards for attorneys he'd researched, all young and hungry, none with Gerald's 40 years of experience. Then came the suggestions. Wouldn't it be easier if Michael handled the property management? Wouldn't I feel better if Lauren had access to my medical records just in case? Shouldn't I think about updating my will now that Tom was gone? Every time I smiled and said I had everything under control, because I did. I'd been managing a multi-million-dollar portfolio for 8 years, and I'd actually increased its value by 32%. But they kept pushing. Michael started bringing documents for me to sign. First, a simple authorization for the bank, but it would have given him full access to view accounts, make transfers, authorize withdrawals. I declined. The second time, papers to add him as co-owner on the property deeds. The language would have given him equal ownership immediately. I refused again. Each time I declined, frustration flashed across his face before he masked it with concern. "Mom, you're being paranoid. I'm just trying to help." Lauren started talking about assisted living communities. She'd leave brochures on my kitchen counter, glossy pamphlets for facilities that cost between $3,000 and $4,000 a month. My house was worth $1.8 million. The math wasn't hard to do. Then small things started disappearing. My mother's pearl necklace vanished from my jewelry box. When I asked Lauren about it, she looked shocked. "Mom, are you sure you didn't move it? Maybe put it somewhere safe and forgot?" I hadn't forgotten. That necklace had been in the same place for 20 years. I changed the locks. I moved my jewelry to a bank vault. I started keeping important documents in Gerald's office, and I started paying closer attention to everything they said and did. Then came Thanksgiving. I'd spent 2 days preparing the perfect meal: turkey, stuffing, 3 kinds of pie, all of Tom's favorites, the recipes we'd perfected over decades. The dining room looked beautiful. I'd set the table with my grandmother's china and the crystal glasses we'd received as wedding gifts 50 years ago. Everyone arrived around 2 in the afternoon. Michael came with his wife, Jennifer. Lauren and Brad walked in, carrying wine and wearing smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. We ate, we talked, we laughed. It felt almost normal. After dinner, I started clearing the plates. Jennifer offered to help, but I waved her off. "You all relax," I said. "I'll just take these to the kitchen and start on coffee." I loaded my arms with dishes and walked toward the kitchen. The door to the dining room doesn't close all the way. It's an old house, and the frame settled years ago. There's always a 2-inch gap, enough for sound to carry. As I set the dishes in the sink, I heard my name. "Mom's getting worse." It was Lauren's voice, low and serious. "Did you see her today? She forgot what time we were coming. She was scrambling around when we arrived." My hands froze in the soapy water. I hadn't forgotten. They'd said 2 o'clock and I'd been ready at 1:30. They'd arrived 15 minutes early. "She's definitely slipping." That was Brad. My uncle went the same way. One day he's fine, the next he's forgetting his own address. I dried my hands slowly, carefully, not making a sound. "We need to move faster." Michael's voice now. "I've been trying to get her to sign the power of attorney for months, but she keeps reading the fine print. It's like she doesn't trust us." "Because she's paranoid," Lauren said. "That's part of the decline. She thinks everyone's after her money. Last week she accused me of taking Mother's pearl necklace." "You did," I thought, gripping the edge of the sink. "The key is documentation," Brad continued. "My lawyer says we need at least 6 documented incidents of memory loss or confusion. Has she made any questionable transactions?" "Not that I can find," Michael said, frustrated. "Her accounts are in better shape than when Dad was alive. Every property is performing well. Maintenance is up to date. She's even making smarter investments than our father did." "Then we need to create incidents," Brad said flatly. "Document times when she seems confused. Keep records of conversations where she contradicts herself. Build a pattern." "Isn't that... can we do that?" Jennifer's voice, hesitant. "It's for her own good," Michael said sharply. "She's 73. She's not going to be competent forever. We're just accelerating an inevitable process." "She's old," Brad said. "Just tolerate her until we can take over. Once we have control of the estate, we can make the real decisions. That Charleston property alone could net us $2 million if we sell it to the developers. And the investment portfolio, we could liquidate half of it and still have plenty left over." My breath caught. Tom and I had refused to sell that property for 30 years. It was a historic building we'd restored. The developers wanted to tear it down. Michael knew how much that building meant to us. Dad would want us to protect the family assets. Michael's voice was sanctimonious. He worked too hard for Mom to mismanage everything in her old age. How dare he invoke Tom's name to justify this betrayal? "So what's the plan?" Jennifer asked. "She won't sign anything. How do we get around that?" "We might need to pursue guardianship," Lauren said it casually. "Dr. Morrison said if we can document enough incidents, we could petition the court. He's willing to provide medical testimony about her declining cognitive function." Dr. Morrison. My own doctor, who'd told me last month I was in excellent health. They'd gotten to him, too. "How long will the process take?" Brad asked. 6 months? Maybe less if we're aggressive, Michael answered. We file the petition, present our documentation, get Dr. Morrison's testimony. Once guardianship is granted, we have full control. She can't buy, sell, or transfer anything without our approval. And she can't change her will, Lauren added. Once we have guardianship, her estate planning is locked in place. Unless we change it, Brad said. As her guardians, we could petition the court to amend her estate plan, moving her to assisted living, liquidating assets to pay for her care. What about her current will? Jennifer asked. She won't show us, Lauren said bitterly, but I'm assuming it's split equally between Michael and me. I can't imagine she'd cut us out. Even if she tries to, once we have guardianship, we can challenge it, Brad assured her. We'd argue she wasn't of sound mind. The court would likely revert to the previous will. How long? Brad asked again. We've got our own financial commitments to consider. Call it 8 months total, Michael said. We just need to be patient. Keep visiting, keep documenting, keep pushing. She can't hold out forever. She's 73, Lauren added, her voice cold. It's not like she's going to live another 20 years. We just need to wait. There was a murmur of agreement around the table. Here's what we do, Michael said, taking charge. We keep up the Sunday dinners. Lauren, you keep pushing the assisted living angle. I'll keep trying to get her to sign financial documents. Brad, you work on Dr. Morrison. Everyone document everything, dates, times, conversations, anything that could support our case. What if she figures it out? Jennifer asked quietly. Michael laughed, a sound that made my blood run cold. She won't. She's convinced we're devoted children. Besides, even if she suspects something, what's she going to do? She's alone. We're all she has. I stood in that kitchen, my hands gripping the edge of the sink, listening to my children discuss me like I was already dead, like I was an inconvenience, an obstacle between them and their inheritance. They weren't waiting for me to die naturally. They were planning to have me declared incompetent so they could take everything while I was still alive. The worst part, they weren't even sad about it. There was no regret in their voices, no guilt, no love, just cold calculation and greed. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for my coffee to grow cold in the pot. Long enough for my hands to stop, shaking. Long enough for something inside me to turn to steel. When I walked back into that dining room carrying the coffee tray, I didn't say a word about what I'd heard. I smiled. I poured coffee. I served pie. I laughed at Michael's jokes and listened to Lauren talk about her latest yoga class. I was the perfect mother, the perfect hostess, the grateful old woman who was so blessed to have such caring children. They had no idea I'd been standing right behind them. They had no idea what was coming. That night, after everyone left, I didn't sleep. I sat in Tom's study, my study now, and I made lists. I reviewed documents. I made calls to people in different time zones who were still awake. By the time the sun came up, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Monday morning, I called my attorney, Gerald Hutchins. Not the family attorney, my personal attorney, the one I'd kept separate from everything else, the one Tom had insisted I have. Just in case, he'd said, and I'd thought he was being paranoid. Now I understood. He'd known. Even back then, he'd known to protect me. Gerald, I said when he answered, I need to see you today. It's urgent. I heard the concern in his voice. Dorothy, what's wrong? I need to restructure everything, all of it, and I need it done before anyone knows what's happening. There was a pause. Gerald had been practicing law for 40 years. He'd heard that tone before. I'll clear my schedule. Come in at 2. I spent that morning gathering documents, bank statements, property deeds, investment portfolios, insurance policies, everything. I filled 2 briefcases with paperwork and drove to Gerald's office in downtown Charleston. His secretary, Martha, took one look at me and the briefcases and immediately ushered me into his office. Gerald stood when I entered, his expression serious. Tell me what's happening, he said. So I did. I told him everything. The increasing pressure, the missing jewelry, Thanksgiving dinner, standing in my kitchen, listening to my children plot. I told him about Dr. Morrison and their 6-month timeline for guardianship. I told him about their plans to sell the Charleston property and liquidate investments. Gerald's expression grew darker with every word. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. "I've seen this before," he finally said, "more often than anyone wants to believe. Adult children who view their aging parents as assets to be managed rather than people to be loved. Dorothy, you're in a race against time. If they file for guardianship before you take action, everything becomes exponentially more difficult. What are my options?" Gerald opened his laptop and pulled up a legal pad. "We create an irrevocable trust. You transfer all your assets into it, with you as the lifetime beneficiary. You retain complete control, but legally, you no longer own the assets. The trust does. Even if someone got guardianship over you personally, they couldn't touch the trust assets." "And my children?" Gerald looked at me directly. "That's your decision. You can name them as beneficiaries for after you pass, with conditions, or exclude them entirely. You can also include provisions that automatically disinherit anyone who attempts to declare you incompetent." I thought about Michael's voice. She's definitely slipping. Lauren discussing guardianship. Brad calculating property values at my dinner table. "I want them excluded," I said. "Completely." Gerald nodded and started making notes. "Here's what we're going to do. We'll create what's called a fortress trust with multiple layers of legal protection. First, the irrevocable trust itself. Second, a poison pill provision. If anyone contests the trust or attempts to have you declared incompetent, every asset goes to charity. Third, independent medical evaluations proving your competency. 3 physicians who have no connection to your family will do comprehensive evaluations. How long will this take? 2 weeks, maybe 3. We need to draft documents properly, arrange the medical evaluations, and execute all the transfers. But Dorothy, once we file this with the probate court, it's done. You need to be absolutely certain." I didn't hesitate. "I'm certain. Then we start today." If you're watching this and you've been moved by my story, I want to ask you something. Would you do me a favor and hit that subscribe button? It helps me share these stories with more people who might need to hear them. And believe me, what comes next, you'll want to see this through to the end. Gerald nodded. He didn't try to talk me out of it, didn't suggest I was being rash or emotional. He just started making notes. We worked for 6 hours that day. Gerald brought in his paralegal, Stephanie, and his estate planning specialist, Marcus. They drafted documents, reviewed holdings, structured the trust with layers of protection. Every property, every account, every investment went into the Dorothy Ann Morrison Trust, with me as the sole trustee and lifetime beneficiary. The trust named several beneficiaries to receive distributions after my death. The women's shelter where I volunteered. The scholarship fund Tom and I had established years ago. The animal rescue that had given me my beloved dog, Murphy. Organizations that had meant something to us, causes we'd believed in. Michael's name wasn't there. Lauren's wasn't either. But we didn't stop there. Gerald added what he called poison pill provisions. If anyone contested the trust or attempted to have me declared incompetent, the trust would be automatically amended to donate my entire estate to charity. If anyone challenged my mental capacity to create the trust, an independent medical panel would be convened, not including Dr. Morrison, to evaluate me and provide testimony. We scheduled that evaluation for the following week. 3 independent physicians spent hours with me. They tested my memory, my reasoning, my decision-making capacity. They reviewed my medical records, my financial management history, everything. All 3 concluded the same thing. I was of sound mind and body, fully capable of managing my own affairs. Those reports were sealed and attached to the trust documents. It took 2 weeks to finalize everything, 2 weeks of meetings, signatures, notarizations, transfers. 2 weeks during which Michael called 3 times to check on me, and Lauren stopped by twice with more assisted living brochures. I smiled through all of it. I played my part perfectly. The documents were filed with the probate court on a Friday afternoon. By law, the trust was now irrevocable. Nothing could change it without my explicit consent, and even if I wanted to add someone back in, the process would require court approval and another competency evaluation. My children were locked out. Now came the hard part, waiting for them to find out. I didn't have to wait long. The following Monday, Michael called. His voice was tight, controlled, with an edge I'd never heard before. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something. Can I come over?" "Of course, sweetheart. Is everything all right?" "We'll discuss it when I get there." He hung up without saying goodbye. He arrived 30 minutes later with Lauren and Brad. Jennifer wasn't with them this time. I wondered if she'd had second thoughts about the whole plan. They didn't bring wine. They didn't smile. They didn't hug me at the door. They walked into my living room like they were entering a business meeting, like this was my house, but somehow their territory now. Michael held a folder, his knuckles white from gripping it so hard. "Mom, we need to talk about your finances." I settled into Tom's chair, my chair now, and folded my hands in my lap. "What about them, dear?" "We've been contacted by your bank. Apparently, you've made some significant changes to your accounts, major transfers. They wanted to verify with us that you weren't being scammed or making decisions under duress." Of course, the bank had called them. They'd been listed as emergency contacts for years, a safety measure Tom and I had put in place decades ago when the children were trustworthy. When those massive transfers started happening, moving millions of dollars into new accounts, the bank had flagged it and reached out to verify. Michael had probably thought it was his lucky day, proof that I was being scammed or making poor decisions, ammunition for his guardianship petition. "Oh, that," I said pleasantly, keeping my voice light. "Yes, I did some restructuring. Just standard estate planning, really." "Mom." Lauren sat down across from me, her voice dripping with that fake patience I now recognized so clearly. "This isn't standard anything. You moved everything. All of it. Multiple properties, investment accounts, savings, everything. Do you understand what you've done?" "I understand perfectly, sweetheart. I created an irrevocable trust to protect my assets." Brad leaned forward, his hands clasped between his knees. "Protected from what, exactly? From us? We're your family, Dorothy. We're the people who care about you." I looked at him for a long moment. This man who'd sat at my table on Thanksgiving and discussed my properties like commodities to be liquidated. This man who'd calculated my worth down to the last dollar and found it acceptable. This man who'd said, "She's old, just tolerate her." "Yes," I said simply, evenly, "protected from you." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the carpet. Michael's face flushed red, starting at his neck and climbing to his hairline. "Mom, I don't know what you think you heard." "What I heard?" I leaned forward slightly, my voice still calm, but with steel underneath. "Michael, I heard everything. Thanksgiving Day, while I was standing in the kitchen with my hands in soapy dishwater, I heard every single word that came out of your mouths in my dining room. I heard you discussing how to take control of my estate. Would you like me to be specific?" Lauren's face had gone white. "Mom, you don't understand. We were just concerned." "Concerned?" I interrupted her. "Let me tell you what I heard, Lauren. I heard you say I'm getting worse. I heard you claim I forgot what time you were coming to Thanksgiving dinner, when in fact you arrived 15 minutes early and I was still cooking. I heard you discuss my supposed memory problems that don't exist. I heard you admit you're keeping a notebook, documenting false incidents to build a case against me." "That's not," she started, but I held up my hand. "I heard you talk about guardianship proceedings. I heard you say Dr. Morrison is willing to provide testimony about my declining cognitive function. when he told me just last month that I'm in excellent health. I heard you plan to petition the court within 6 months. I heard you discuss how once you have guardianship, I can't change my will. I heard you talk about moving me to assisted living and liquidating assets to free up capital. Should I continue? Michael stood up, his voice rising. We were trying to protect you. You're 73 years old, you're isolated, you're making financial decisions that what? My voice cut through his like a knife. That increased the value of this estate by 32%. That maintained every property in perfect condition. That kept every tenant satisfied and every investment performing above market averages. Exactly which decisions concern you, Michael? The successful ones? You're being paranoid, Brad said, but his voice lacked conviction. This is exactly the kind of reaction that shows... That shows what? I stood up now, too. I'm not a tall woman, but in that moment I felt 10 feet high. That shows I'm not the confused old woman you were counting on. That shows I'm capable of protecting myself. Yes, Brad, it absolutely does show that. This is ridiculous. Brad stood too, his professional mask slipping. You're making a massive mistake based on a conversation you misunderstood. You're destroying your family over nothing. I walked to Tom's desk and pulled out a folder, one of several I'd prepared. I was evaluated by 3 independent physicians 2 weeks ago. Not Dr. Morrison, since I heard you'd compromised him. 3 board-certified physicians with no connection to any of you. All 3 found me to be of sound mind and body, fully capable of managing my affairs. They tested my memory, my reasoning, my judgment. I scored in the 95th percentile for my age group. Would you like to read the summaries? I handed the folder to Brad. He opened it with shaking hands, scanned the first page, and I watched the color drain from his face. The trust is irrevocable, I continued, my voice steady and clear. It's structured to provide for all my needs during my lifetime, with distributions to various charitable organizations after my death. None of you are named as beneficiaries. If any of you attempt to contest it or have me declared incompetent, the entire estate goes to charity immediately. Every penny. The trust documents include your Thanksgiving conversation, transcribed from memory and verified by my attorneys. It includes details of every document you tried to get me to sign, every assisted living brochure you left on my counter, every manipulation attempt over the last year. You can't do this. Lauren's voice was shrill now, her careful facade crumbling. Dad wouldn't have wanted this. He left everything to you so you could take care of us. Your father? I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of these people. Your father left everything to me because we built it together, because he trusted me to manage it wisely, because he believed I would make good decisions. And I have. This is a good decision, Lauren. Your father loved you both more than life itself. He sacrificed everything to give you opportunities he never had. He worked 70-hour weeks so you could have private schools and summer camps and college education without debt. And this, my voice broke slightly, this is how you honor his memory? By plotting to steal from me? By treating me like I'm already dead? We're your children, Michael shouted, losing all composure now. You deserve nothing. My voice cracked like thunder, surprising even myself. Children who love their parents don't plot against them. They don't lie. They don't manipulate. They don't scheme. They don't conspire with doctors to build false medical records. They don't plan to demolish their father's historic building for condominium development. You don't deserve a single penny of what your father and I built because you've shown me exactly what you'd do with it. You'd squander it, fight over it, use it to justify the fact that you betrayed your own mother. The room was silent except for my heavy breathing and Lauren's poorly suppressed sob. Michael tried one more time, his voice shaking. Mom, we made mistakes. We said things we shouldn't have. But you can't throw away your whole family because of one bad conversation. We're still your children. That has to count for something. I looked at him, really looked at him, and tried to see the little boy who used to bring me dandelions from the backyard, who used to curl up next to me on the couch for bedtime stories. I couldn't find him. That child was gone, replaced by this stranger in an expensive suit who'd tried to steal my life. One bad conversation, I said quietly. Michael, this wasn't one bad conversation. This was a conspiracy that lasted a year. This was systematic manipulation, documented lies, corruption of medical professionals, and detailed plans to have me declared incompetent and stripped of my rights. You had a timeline. You had strategies. You coordinated your efforts. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of poor judgment. This was calculated theft, and the only reason you didn't succeed is because I happened to overhear you. If I hadn't been standing in that kitchen, you'd still be executing your plan right now, wouldn't you? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The truth was written all over his face. Lauren started to cry. Not real tears. The practiced kind. The manipulative kind. Please, Mom, we made a mistake. We weren't thinking clearly. You have to forgive us. I don't have to do anything. You made your choice when you sat at my table and plotted against me. You made your choice when you contacted my doctor to help you build a case. You made your choice when you decided I was just an obstacle between you and your inheritance. Mom, please. Michael reached for my hand. I pulled away. Don't touch me, and don't come back to this house. Any of you. You're not welcome here anymore. You're making a mistake, Brad said, his voice cold now. We'll fight this. We'll prove you're incompetent. Try it, I said. My attorneys are already prepared for that. Every attempt you make will be documented, and every failed attempt will be used as evidence of harassment. You can spend your money on lawyers if you want, but you won't win. The trust is airtight. They left. Lauren was still crying her fake tears. Michael was red-faced and furious. Brad looked like he was calculating his next move. I closed the door behind them and locked it. Then I walked to Tom's chair, sat down, and let myself shake. The calls started that evening. Michael called 6 times, leaving increasingly angry voicemails. Lauren called crying, begging, promising it was all a misunderstanding. Brad sent text messages threatening legal action. I blocked all their numbers. Jennifer called the next day, trying to play mediator. Dorothy, please, Michael is devastated. He never meant to hurt you. Tell Michael, I said calmly, that actions have consequences. Tell him his father would be ashamed of him. Tell him not to contact me again. I hung up. The following week, I received a letter from an attorney representing Michael and Lauren. It threatened to contest the trust, suggested I was unduly influenced, hinted at legal action for elder abuse against my attorneys. Gerald laughed when he read it. This is nothing. They're grasping at straws. The trust is solid, Dorothy. They can't touch it. He was right. Every legal challenge they attempted was dismissed. The judges saw through their claims immediately. When they tried to have me evaluated by their own doctors, the court refused. I'd already been evaluated by independent physicians who found nothing wrong. They tried to contact the charities named in my trust, suggesting I was being scammed. The charity's attorneys contacted Gerald, who provided documentation showing the trust had been my idea, carefully planned and legally sound. 3 months later, they gave up. The calls stopped. The letters stopped. They disappeared from my life as completely as if they'd never existed. Some people might think I should feel sad about that. Maybe I should mourn the loss of my children, grieve for the family that no longer exists. But here's what I actually feel. Free. For the first time in a year, I can breathe without wondering who's plotting behind my back. I can make decisions without second-guessing every conversation. I can live in my home without feeling like I'm being circled by predators. I still volunteer at the women's shelter twice a week. I still manage my properties, and they're doing better than ever. I travel now. Last month, I went to Italy, something I'd always dreamed of doing. I spend time with real friends, people who care about me for who I am, not what I own. Murphy, my golden retriever, is sleeping at my feet right now as I tell you this story. He's better company than my children ever were. And you know what else? I'm writing a book. My attorney suggested it. A memoir about elder financial abuse and how to protect yourself. It's going to detail everything that happened, with names changed, of course, to help other people recognize the warning signs before it's too late. So that's my story. That's what happened when I heard my family say, "She's old, just tolerate her until we take over." They didn't know I was standing right behind them, but more importantly, they didn't know who they were dealing with. I'm Dorothy Morrison. I'm 73 years old. I built a life. With my husband, I raised a family. I managed a multi-million-dollar estate. And when my own children tried to take it all from me, I outmaneuvered them at every turn. I'm not just some old woman to be tolerated. I'm not an obstacle to be overcome. I'm not incompetent, confused, or easy to manipulate. I'm exactly who I've always been, strong, capable, and unwilling to be anyone's victim. And I'm going to live exactly as long as I damn well please. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who might be facing something similar. Trust your instincts, protect yourself, and never ever let anyone make you feel like you're less than you are just because you've gotten older. This is Dot from Charleston, signing off. Stay strong, my friends.